Great opening weekend for the Canadian Premier League. All 8 teams were in action, gentlemen. And there were no draws. All 3 points were picked up in each of the matches as well. And some good news, the CPL, by the way, making an announcement that inside the Winnipeg bubble beginning July 7th, at least 2,000 fans will be allowed to be spectators. So we're moving along here in Canada. Let's go. Let's give an overview of the weekend that was, and let's begin with you, Ollie. Which team impressed you the most?
Has to be Pacific for me. Just by far, I thought the most complete team performance, the team that was gelling together, you know, all the different pieces combining and understanding. They kept a clean sheet. They were pretty solid at the back, kept Akeem Garcia so quiet that he was substituted at halftime. And really the story was in midfield and up front where they were exceptional. You know, Ollie Bassett had a fantastic debut at the base of midfield, not a player I really knew much about, but looks like he could be a real difference maker for them. Marco Bustos comes out of the blocks exactly where he left off with a goal. I thought Aparicio settled in well. Diaz, as I'll get to in a minute, took it to another level. Still got Victor Blasco, Michael Baldissimo to come back. Just looks like a really strong team right now and one that could be right up there contending for the regular season title.
Valor beat the champs. It's the upset of the weekend. No one would have predicted it, especially when you look at the team sheet. You have a right back at Kabara playing center back. It was makeshift all the park. Brett Levi's had to leave the game through injury. There's players in quarantine, not in the country. And for them to come out, Austin Ricci, congratulations, scoring his first professional goal. Look at that. He doesn't want to hear from the critics anymore. He's a proven goal scorer now. This is what Valor, this is what they need to be all about. They dug deep, and good on the boys. That was the result of the weekend.
Gareth, coming back to you, which player impressed you?
Drew Becky, back in Ottawa. I thought he was outstanding at center back against FC Edmonton. The Atletico Ottawa team all of a sudden now is a really good player pool of center backs in this team, but Drew Becky was the best, whether it was dealing with Vorshevsky up top or Easton Ongaro. I thought he was very strong. And when the pressure came on Atletico Ottawa and a lot of young players late in the game, he held strong, he held tight. He's going to be in the mix with the likes of Jean-Baptiste, who really impressed me on the weekend as well, as kind of those top defenders in the Canadian Premier League. So welcome back to Canada, Drew Becky.
I've gone with Alejandro Diaz, as I mentioned just there. You know, I thought he was good, but maybe not great at the Island Games. But, you know, a bit more time, a proper preseason with Pacific, and he looks like he can take it to another level. And what I really like about him and what could be so important to Pacific, I think, is that he's not necessarily that out-and-out number 9 who just wants to be in the penalty area, wants to be scoring goals all of the time. He's someone who can drop in, play in those spaces in between the lines, really connect the play. And when you have someone like that who has that, you know, intelligence and sense of positioning, it does so much for players like Marco Bustos in terms of allowing them to get into those goal-scoring areas and really be difference makers. So almost like a Roberto Firmino at Liverpool and Salah being Bustos, you know, I think that could be a really good connection between those two, and they're going to be difficult to get a handle on.
Are you pulling a Terry Dunfield? He likes to make the comparisons now with the Premier League. All right, let me ask you this now. What's the biggest surprise of the weekend for you, Ollie?
It has to be Forge, right? And Valor beating Forge. And I don't want to take anything away from what Valor did, but it was really surprising to see Forge just so leaky at the back and making so many mistakes. I think there were some reasons for it in terms of, as I said on the weekend, Forge trying to build out a style of play, trying to build out a system that I think is difficult to execute, but if they can get it right, will make them an even better team than they've been before. There was certainly kind of a long view taken, I think, by Bobby Simoniotis, rather than putting all the emphasis on getting the result this weekend. And Valor did a great job to exploit it with their pressing and their running and the way they took advantage of those sloppy moments. But even with all those kind of caveats thrown in and the fact that I think Forge will come good and sooner rather than later, it was still surprising just to see them be quite as sloppy and quite as defensively vulnerable as they were.
I'm with you. That's the angle I'm going, but I'm going to talk about their attack a little bit more, Ollie, because this squad is fantastic, wonderful players, obviously a great coach as well. They looked really good at times moving the ball, but they weren't moving the ball anywhere. You know what I mean? Like they were in these little triangles, they were moving, but nothing inside the area. They just lacked that little bit of directness. Where was Tristan Borges? Where's he going to play? Like, this was a highly anticipated return, and I know he hasn't played for a long time. Sabak, how does that mix work? I think that you might need a little bit more pace, a little bit more directness somewhere. Babuli was MIA, Chouanier was ineffective. Once the players came on, I think you saw a little bit of more something from a player like Nanko, who has some pace. So, although you have talent, I think that they need to really think about how to best utilize these players in attack in order to complement and get the most out of all of them.
Who should not be happy with their performance, Gareth?
Easton Ungaro. I mean, this is a player that, you know, has a big reputation, 22 years of age, good age, went on loan, was playing overseas, and had a golden opportunity right when he came on, and he missed it. Top strikers in the Canadian Premier League have to finish this chance. Yes, it's a good save by Dylan Powley, but come on. I don't care if you had wrist surgery 2 weeks ago. I don't care if the goalkeeper did well. You are Easton Ungaro. You need to finish that chance. This is an FC Edmonton team that historically now, through these 3 seasons of Canadian Premier, or going into the 3rd season of the Canadian Premier League, they've just struggled to score goals. He needs to be a reliable source of goals. So he should be disappointed that he didn't put his team up top. And who knows, if he scores that, FC Edmonton could have very well come away with the full 3 points because they played decent on the day.
I'll go with the other finalists, Halifax Wanderers. Just wasn't really a great day for them in terms of the performance they put in to start the season by building on what they did last year. It was just a bit of an odd one for me. I thought it looked like the 2019 Wanderers in a lot of ways, 4-4-2. Just a bit predictable, you know, straight lines rather than having the kind of dynamism with players like John Morelli and Alex Marshall last season. Now, those two didn't start, so I know that this is nowhere near probably Halifax's best lineup, and there was a bit of kind of, again, taking the longer view and working your way into the season, I think, in Stephen Hart's plans there. But it was just a bit of a flat performance from a team that you would have thought would, you know, want to come out and demonstrate that they are for real and they can do what they did last year again. I just didn't see a lot from Halifax's best players on the day.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we know Stephen Hart. Yeah, so Stephen Hart, we know, was under observation. He had to leave halfway through that game by paramedics because he wasn't feeling well, but it was great to see him take to Twitter and to say that he was doing all right. Yeah. And also remind me never to come to you for any kind of sympathy, Gareth, if I have surgery. Say, too bad, host the show, let's go. Who scored the best goal of the weekend, Ollie?
Bustos. I'll go back to Pacific one last time because I thought this was just a really good team goal and one that, you know, in this opening weekend's first game of the season, again, repeating myself, but the preseason these teams have had, you just don't expect to see this kind of understanding, this kind of cohesion. So there were some great goals on the weekend, but I think most of the others were kind of really good individual efforts. This one for me was a fantastic team goal. A great goal if it had been scored mid-season or at the end of the season to show that kind of level of understanding and cohesion in the attack is not easy. So that for me is really exciting if you're a Pacific fan.
Best goal of the weekend came from a guy named Ollie, the better Ollie. Just kidding, Platt, you're my number one. It's Ollie Bassett, and I got to stick up for my fellow Ginge Army all the way. Looking like a young Paul Scholes here, scoring from distance. The dip, the hit, that's a wonderful strike. Scholes would be proud. Wheeler would be proud. Team Ginger is proud. Go on, Ollie Bassett. You're number one in our hearts.
Oh, the Gingers. All right, Ollie, you have the honor of taking us through the first ever Gatorade Team of the Week.
Yeah, I've got help with this, with KJ helping me pick it this year. So if there's anything you don't like, again, I'll throw him under the bus and say it was his fault and not mine this time. Ricci leading the line. I think he's thoroughly earned that, and I'm hoping there's more to come from him. I thought he could get goals this season in that Valor team, and he started off in the right way, but dominated overall by Valor players and by Pacific players, and those were the two best performances of the weekend for me. Atletico Ottawa Cavalry did well, and they make up the rest of the team. But Valor, I think, with that back line, really held out strong against Forge, and that's why Jean-Baptiste and Peña get the nods. And Pacific, you look at the combination play between some of these guys, Bassett, Bustos, Diaz, Caden Chung is, you know, an 8 out of 10 every single week. I think they thoroughly deserve their spots as well.
Jose Escalante loves to live rent-free in the heads of everyone.
Yeah,
he's back in the CPL. Gareth, is there anyone that stands out to you on this list?
It's Pena, and he slotted in at left back, even though he started the game at right back. This was a player that was struggling to get into Rob Gale's side at the end of last season, and now he's playing internationally. He started on the right, moved to the left when Levi's went out, but Carroll came on, the Cuban player, and he did very well on the right-hand side. But that adaptability, versatility, he has always traditionally been that attack-minded player, but now the fact that he was able to slot back and now play a more defensive role and do a job for Gale and Valor, that stands out to me. That's an unexpected name, but could be a potential big one considering some of the limitations of Brett Levi's right now just around his health. Like, unfortunately, he's such a very good player, but he's dealt with so many injuries over the course of his career. You're going to need players like Pena stepping up on a regular basis.